as I said, there are two things that absolutely has to begin at the top with the leadership. And we've been talking about ethics. Now there's another one that is somewhat related to ethics in that it has to do with personal behavior. All right? This is a touchy subject. A lot of organizations have, by law, required to give workshops on sexual harassment. And organizations are required to do that. Some organizations also have workshops on what they call a hostile environment. A company can be sued and will lose if the plaintiff can prove that there is a large amount of hostility created in the workplace that causes professional and psychological harm. That there are just people in the workplace that are not very nice. Right? And they cause a great deal of difficulty. They're insulting, the gossip, and so on, and I'll go through a whole list in a minute. But before I go through this list, I'm going to tell you they're going to come from a book. I'm going to talk about a book that I've read, and I'm going to show it to you in a moment. It has a controversial title, but it's written by a Stanford University professor. Right? The man is absolutely qualified to write a book. Professor, PhD of Management Science and Engineering at Stanford University. His name's Robert Sutton, PhD. All right? Now, Mr. Sutton, Dr. Sutton, has written a book that I'm going to talk about. There it is. You see what it says? And I'm going to say it just once. The no asshole rule. All right? Now you see why I'm not going to say it more than once? Dr. Sutton says, and I believe from a lot of consulting work I've done for several companies, that these people who create hostile environments have got to go. They've got to be deleted from the company. Now I'm going to go through what they do, what they cost, right, and what can be done about it. Here's the kinds of things I'm talking about. They're personally insulting to others. Now there's a lot of ways you can be insulted. Right? Just the way you're treated, things that are said to you, but they insult others. They invade your personal territory without your permission. Walk in, look at stuff on your desk, go through your desk, get in. I have consulted to a company where the man would go through people's desks and the personal stuff in there. And I said to him, you might have the legal right to do that, but you're going to lose people. And I guarantee, and this particular man he had a revolving door with employees because of this kind of treatment. Uninvited physical contact. That's what sexual harassment is all about. Right? But nobody gave you permission to put your hand on me. Now, I come from a family of huggers. The men hug each other, get whisker burns from this big bear hugs, right? And my favorite aunt, my beautiful Aunt Agnes, she was a big woman and she was cheerful. And us boys would go out to the house and she'd come out on the porch with her apron, wiping her hands and walk up, grab us and pull us in there. We'd be boobed to death, because she's in there giving us a big hug. So we come from that kind of contact. But in the workplace, not everybody comes from that background. There are folks who just won't stop it even if they're asked. Threats and intimidation. There's different power places in a workplace. There are people who have more stroke and more clout and a bigger title than someone else. And they use that to intimidate and threaten other folks. Sarcasm and so-called jokes, which are purposefully aimed to deliver an insult. I've quit telling jokes. I literally have quit telling them in any kind of social context or to anybody that I do not know very, very well, because I'm probably going to say the wrong thing. And there are people in the workplace who do that on purpose. Status slaps. You know, I'm this and you're only that. Public shaming, degrading other people in meetings. Chewing somebody out in public. Cutting down their work in public to other people. And it's not even your job. Two-faced people. Pretend to be your friend, walk down the hall and stab you in the back. Folks who give you dirty looks in meetings, in the hallway, just to make you feel lousy. Then there are those who treat you as if you're invisible. You don't even exist. And my worst enemy to talk about is malicious, purposeful, damaging gossip. It is the sewage of human communication. Purposeful, harmful gossip. Person A saying something to person B about person C who's not there to defend themselves for no purpose but to do harm. I had a supervisor of mine, a lady in a higher position than me, stop me in the hall one time and said, "Did you know that," and she named the lady down the hall, "did you know that she's getting divorced?" I said, "Well, no, I didn't know that, and frankly, that's her personal business, and I don't care." And then the lady talking to me, she said, "Well, sometime about every weekend, I go through the civil court records of people that work around here to see who's doing what." And then I said, "So you come to school then and tell the rest of us?" She said, "Well, I think we ought to know." And I said, "I think you're a psychotic. I think you have far too much time on your hands, and you're psychotic." And that was my supervisor. Later on, she attacked some people in front of some student. We had student employees, and she attacked a staff member, just cut them to ribbons in front of these student employees. I went upstairs to the big shots and filed against her, and wrote the paperwork out. And she's no longer there. Right? But that's evil. This talking about it, it's evil. And leadership, people at the top, are responsible to see that all of these behaviors that I just said are not allowed in their organization. Indeed, they will be costly to those people who do them. Because if they don't, it's costly to the organization. It keeps people from getting their tasks done. You go insult somebody and they are upset. They can't work for a while. They lose psychological safety. And I tell you, fear is real. I know what fear is, and it's a real thing. The people who are not afraid have a moral obligation to stand up for folks who are. And those who go around and make a habit of reducing people's psychological safety got to go. Because they hurt the productivity of the whole company. Work slides in time and quality. People lose energy because of the beating they're taking. They literally have a impaired mental ability because they can't concentrate because they're taking a beating from these, what does Dr. Sutton call them? Right? These folks are destroying others. Absenteeism and turnover go up because of the behavior of these people. And leadership has to make sure that it stops. Right? It takes time and money, number one, to recover. You've lost money in productivity, you've lost money in absenteeism, you've lost money in turnover. You've lost money because you now have to get HR involved, and they have to spend time trying to move people around or get this person in anger management or train and counsel this person, and that costs money. You will lose money in legal matters if you don't fix it. One company did a study of what one of their employees, it's in Dr. Sutton's book, the man's name's Ethan, the bad guy was Ethan. He cost the company $160,000 just because of this kind of behavior. And you've got to see that it's not allowed at any level. It has to be reported and it has to be stopped. Whistleblowers have got to know that if they see this kind of behavior, they report it to their supervisor, and if their supervisor doesn't report it, they go see the CEO. And the CEO sees that it stops. I talk passionately about this because I've been in several organizations where this has happened. These kind of people can destroy a company. I've seen them break up law firms. I've seen them almost break up a cul-de-sac where one nasty-tongued woman in the cul-de-sac was making the whole place an impossible place to live. This vicious, malicious gossip, rudeness. You know? I heard one nurse say one time, I was called to a hospital to do some consulting work because there was just some bad culture. The doctors were mistreating the nurses, the older nurses were mistreating the young were quitting, and the whole thing was a mess. And so I go out to do consulting work on this very subject. And this one older nurse who was taking the side of the younger ones, she says, I don't know why, but this seems to be part of an older nurse culture that we eat our young. Right? And it's not necessary. We should be supportive and helpful. This particular place, they said, what are we going to do about Dr. So-and-so? He's so rude to everybody. We have no power to do anything, and the hospital administrators won't get rid of him because they need him. I said, well, just get a bulletin board and post up there in great big letters what he said and done to everybody. Put it up every day. And they did, and it stopped. Right? But the leadership, ethical behavior, and getting rid of this hostile environment begins with leaders. In my classes, students have to write a paper on how they would cure a hostile workplace and how they would prevent one. How would you?